All right, guys. Fuller coming to you with another video. This video is gonna be about considering that yesterday was the Indigenous Peoples Day. Um, you know, there was a post on Instagram, and the one thing you have to understand is that many Western black women who play the activist card are just as toxic as the ones who maybe are not aware of the plight of what's going on and things like that. That's usually how it works with a lot of these women. Even myself is experienced that there was this one African study group that I engaged in, and unknowingly they were pushing feminist ideas more than anything else. And I realized this, and then that's when I had to jump ship and say thank you for your time and your contributions. Now, the argument that was placed on this post in Instagram, and I'm not going to give her full name. I'm not going to give her Instagram name. You know what I mean? For me, it's better if I just stay quiet about it, and so that's what I'm gonna do. It's just keep my mouth shut about her name. But her name, I will say, has the word genius inside of it. Now, anytime someone says, for example, anytime someone says I'm one of the smartest people on earth, I'm one of the most intelligent people, I'm smart, I'm intelligent, and things like that. Anytime someone says that, just understand that you're dealing with someone who's self-absorbed. When you look at people for example, Albert Einstein, did Albert Einstein at one time ever call himself intelligent or smart? Did he ever say those words about himself? Did he ever say, oh, I'm smart or I'm intelligent? Or did he just figure out and solve problems and, give inspirational quotes? Did Steve Jobs or Bill Gates ever use those words, I'm just asking. Did Sheikh Anta Joke ever call himself smart or intelligent? Did he ever say that about himself, or did he just do the work? Now, the argument, and I just kept it brief, and I wasn't going to go back and forth with her, but the argument was she feels that there were no black people in the Americas before slavery. She feels that all black people were brought to the Americas via the slave trade. She goes on to say that and I think she was debating maybe with people who feel that blacks were indigenous to the land, basically. I think that's who she was debating with at the time. So I thought about adding my little contribution, and I said maybe there weren't blacks who were indigenous to America, but there were pre-Columbian blacks. And what I mean by Columbian, I mean pre-Columbus blacks. that were in the Americas that were not necessarily in um, that were not necessarily in North America, so to say, but they were in different parts of the Central America and South America and the Caribbean. Yeah, I'm going to get into that. But what basically happened is that, you know, I told her about these group of blacks that were here before Columbus. You know, I told her about them. And so what happened was, she said, no, those groups of blacks were slaves, you know. So I said, well, I have a book that I can recommend to you to read, you know. And mind you, on her post, she says, these YouTube Negroes got y'all stuck and you guys don't read. So I said, I have a book that I can recommend to you that goes into all of this, you know, that goes into the whole shebang, that uses archives from, you know, different sources. She says, no. She says, no, thank you to the book. So I just said, okay, easy call. Now, the group of blacks that I am talking about, who have sat down with me and spoke about their origins, and they actually, the majority of them favor the origin that I'm about to go into over the one that she believes, which is that these were just shipwrecked slaves who came from, you know, there's different theories. Some say the Bight of Benin. Some say the Bight of Biafra. Some say different theories. You know what I mean? But when you talk to these group of people, they actually favor the one that I am going to talk about. So, you know, in the Mali Empire, there was a individual who, I mean, everybody knows Mansa Kankan Musa from the Keita clan. Everybody knows Mansa Musa. They say that he was the richest man in the world. They say that he was, you know, lavish with gold, that he crashed the economy in Egypt. Everybody says, like, they talk about these things about him, right? But his brother, Abu Bakari, was pretty ambitious. Abu Bakari, rahmatullah alayh, decided that he was going to sail in the Americas. He wanted to see what was on the other side of the Atlantic. You know, he just, I guess, one day said, you know, I'm bored. I want to see what's out there. So what happened was, he took a fleet of ships, sailed the currents to the Atlantic, and he never returned. Now, in those ships were Mandinka, I want to say Mandinka shipmen. They were Mande speaking. Now, what happened is that these pre-Columbus Africans reached the Americas, and they intermingled with the indigenous populations, which were called the Caribs at the time. Now, there was, of course, language barriers and stuff like that. But because of that, a fusion was made. And so now, when you look at the language of these people, you can see lexicons from many words of Mande origin. You see that a lot, right? So these pre-Columbus Africans, Mande-speaking Africans, reached the island of St. Vincent and Grenadines, especially. There, they intermingled with the indigenous population who were known as Caribs. After the intermingling, because there were two groups of Caribs. There were the Arawaks and there were the Kalingos. And they intermingled with them. So, in essence, what happened is these Mande-speaking Africans intermingled with the Kalingos and the Arawaks, and eventually they intermarried, and that fusion created the Garifuna people. Many Garifunas actually believe this narrative rather than the shipwrecked slave narrative. And the reason why they believe this narrative over that is because of the simple fact that, when the British came to St. Vincent and stuff like that, when the French and these opposing powers came to the place, they already saw black people. There was already black people. There was already black people there, and this is written in their reports. Now, another thing too is that this is in Timbuktu archives too. You have manuscripts that show that these Mande-speaking people actually, they actually went to the Atlantic. So I say this all to say that, not all black people in the Americas were slaves. Not all came from slavery. I want to say that basically the Garifuna, they fought the British. They had Garifuna wars. And eventually the British overpowered them and they were exiled they left to places like Nicaragua, Guatemala, Honduras, and Belize. That's where you see the Garifunas. But there still are a contingent of them in St. Vincent and Grenadines. But I say this all to say that, again, I reverted back to the Western black woman who, you may want to add or contribute something positive to her arguments and stuff like that. You're not trying to correct her. You're just trying to contribute to her arguments, But because she is blinded by emotion, she feels that she's always right. You know what I mean? And is not open to a different perspective. So, with that being said, there is actually a book that if you don't believe me what I'm talking about, there's actually a book called the Garifuna Rebellion. It's called I think that's the name of the book. It's like Garifuna Rebellion. Let me see if I can look it up real quick. Let me see. Hold on just a minute. I'm going to try to look it up real quick. I'll give you the title and the okay, yeah. So it's called Insurrectional Resistance of the Garifuna Revolution. The Chosen Ones of Euromin. And this book is by Andoni Castillo Perez. If you read this book, it actually says that bibliographical research is done in England, France, and consultation of some archive of St. Vincent's and Timbuktu, Mali. So that's just a thought that, you know, this is definitely like these Garifunas, these fusions, this African Cari fruit fusion were pre-Columbus Africans. So with that being said, I just wanted to talk about that, you know, due to the fact that Indigenous Day was yesterday. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that they were indigenous. I'm just saying that they were a fusion. You know what I mean? They were pre-Columbus African Caribs. You know what I mean? But anyhow, leave your thoughts and leave your comments. Foolish signing out. Njadama.